Welcome back to the Hoedown Showdown. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and that was Cowboys and Whiskey by our next featured guest, Krystal King. How's it going today?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing really well. I'm really excited to sit down and chat with you. You came to me through a recommendation, and I was like, yes, let's do it absolutely immediately. And then it didn't happen immediately, and I was like, we're still going to get this. So,
Yes. Perfect. Thanks for
but
having me. I do
absolutely.
have to say that I love your radio name.
Oh,
I did a radio show in college
mhm.
in Boone, North Carolina, and I called it the Boontown Hoedown.
Nice.
So
Actually, it's quite funny. So I don't know how my dad knows about Miley Cyrus because my dad's almost 70 years old. So he comes to me when I make the initial announcement for the Hoedown Showdown. He's like, that's a Miley Cyrus song, right? And I'm like, no, it's not. And he's like, yeah, it is. I heard it on he was babysitting his girlfriend's grandkids, like because my mom passed away a couple years ago, so he's dating somebody new and he was helping her babysit. Um, and they were watching Hannah Montana, and she was performing that song Hoedown Throwdown, and I'm like, Dad, two different things. He's like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, Dad. I
I
searched.
haven't heard that song. I'm gonna have to go look at it
Yeah,
now.
it was like when she did the Hannah Montana thing. Yeah. So, anyways, but really excited to have you on. For anybody that's just kind of meeting you for the first time, what got you into music? What's kind of your comic book origin story, if you will?
Yeah, so I always just tell the story of I was like 3 years old and my mom was scanning the radio station, taking me to preschool, and I heard something and I think it was Alan Jackson, and I was like, wait, stop. This is it. And I listened to it, and she said after that, like that was all I wanted to listen to was country music. And that's just kind of where it all started.
At least it wasn't just Alan Jackson, because that would get a little annoying after a while. It's like all you listen to for your entire life is Alan Jackson. Yeah.
Not just Alan Jackson, but I do love Alan Jackson. I still listen to a fair amount.
Yeah. Because I had a couple of friends that were like that. They said they loved like country music or hard rock music or whatever it was, but they only knew one band. And it
One
was
or
like,
two, yeah.
and
And
it's
that was
like,
the only people they listen to.
yeah, it's like, guys, there's other bands out there that make similar music. Like, come on, guys, let's broaden our
Branch out a
horizons.
little.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and so at that moment, that was when you fell in love with country music, or that's when you knew you wanted to be a musician?
I think that's whenever I fell in love with country music, but
Mm.
of course, my 2, 3 year old brain's a little foggy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I just remember my mom had like a toy guitar. It had like 2 or 3 strings on it, and I would always like jump on the bed and sing, and just always said I wanted to be a country singer. Like that's the only thing I can ever remember wanting to be.
Mm-hmm. And so after that moment, that's when the fire was ignited. When did you start like exploring music and just kind of figuring out who you wanted to be as a musician? Was that, yeah.
Yeah, so I started taking guitar lessons, bopped around to a few different guitar teachers, but I had one really good guitar teacher who kind of started me writing songs and got me my first couple coffee shop gigs. And sort of started digging in there. I took a little detour. I went to college and I studied music therapy. So still in the music realm,
Mm,
but not doing my own writing.
yeah.
So I dabbled in writing and still played in college. But I guess in my head, my rational mind was like, oh, I need to get like a job that pays. And so I did that, worked for like a year, and I realized quickly that I still just really wanted to move to Nashville. So my husband, he was my fiance at the time, we decided to just take the leap and move here. And so I'd say
Nice.
like after the first year, we really just dove in and started releasing music, started just kind of figuring it all out. But I was telling you before, I'm about to release a song off of my album I've been working on. And I think this is really like the first album I'm like, okay, this is who I am as an artist. This is my sound. And I think it's been kind of like a slow development. You have to just write a lot, play a lot, collaborate with different
Yeah.
people, and then you eventually kind of hone in on what's your sound.
Yeah, for sure. It's so you said that this upcoming release at the end of the month is kind of who you want to be as a musician. What was the transformation like getting from point A in 2019 when you first started releasing music up to now? Who were you listening to then at that time in 2019?
Oh gosh, when I first moved to town, I think it's still a lot of the same people, but just added in a few.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I really loved Eric Church, Chris Stapleton, Miranda Lambert, and then of course like my old favorites like Leanne Womack and Alan Jackson, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the Chicks, those were some of my earlier influences. But yeah, when I first started releasing music, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how the process worked. And I worked with a guy named Mike Loudermilk, and
Mm-hmm.
he used to play guitar for Crystal Gale.
Nice.
So he produced my most of the first singles that I've released. And he's fantastic. But then with this album, I kind of took a new route. He still plays on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't really hire a producer. We kind of just all got together and started throwing in parts, and I was like, yes, no, maybe something's missing, and we kind of just figured it out as we went. But it kind of, I think, opened doors to a unique sound, because
Mm-hmm.
when you hire a producer, like, they do try to make the music your sound, but
Mm-hmm.
it also is, their vibe leaks into that. um so this one was kind of cool because nobody was really in charge. We were all
Mm-hmm.
just kind of
Yeah.
throwing paint at the wall and hoping something stuck.
Right.
And it turned out really cool.
That's a really cool way to kind of explore who you are as a musician and figure out what you want to be, because that's when you kind of develop your most authentic sound, when you go into a situation, and not saying no one knew what they were doing, but
Oh yeah, I mean, most of them were professionals, but
yeah, but when you go in with like no set structure or guidelines, and it's like, hey, I have this idea for a lyric about drink or cowboys and whiskey, like whatever it is.
mhm,
And somebody's like, oh, I've got a riff over here, and then that's just kind of like when the creative
just
process starts
right.
to flow. And you're not worried about, oh, but I'm country western. We need to hit these certain notes and, key points and whatever. You just kind of went in with the plan of making music, and whatever comes out of it comes out of it.
Right. And it was cool too because I still had some songs that really fit in that honky tonk vibe that I had before. But I also had some others that kind of blended in more of the Stapleton, like the blues rock country element, or the Leanne Womack with the soft, like folkier sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like they all sounded true to me, but I found kind of a way to blend those a little bit more and still have, all those different sides of my music in one project.
Mm-hmm. And so this music that we're highlighting today is off your most recent 3-song EP, Honky Tonk Love Songs. How is, or is there like a big difference between this set of music and what you have coming up, or what do you think the biggest difference is?
Yeah, I think it still keeps the sassy side, and
Mm-hmm.
I definitely still kept that. And it's still the single that I'm about to release has a little bit more of like a rockish country to
Mm-hmm.
it, but still very, like, there's slide guitar, so it still has that honky tonk feel, but not quite as old school feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
it's got a little bit more of a modern twist, I think, on it, where I kept the old EP pretty old school and pretty
Mm-hmm.
traditional. Um, but I think the songwriting's very similar as far as storytelling
Yeah.
and quirky lyrics.
Yeah. And I must say, the song that we're gonna play when we wrap up this interview, "You're the Reason I Drink," just that title alone, it's like everybody has that person
Yes.
in their life. You are
My
the
time.
reason I I would say mine's probably my dad, but I can't say that too loudly because yeah. But no, it's just one of those things where it's like the title resonates with people, and then you listen to the song and it's like, yep, it just hits perfectly. So um I'm glad that I have found a new song to add to the playlist and just kind of like rock out when I'm in the car. So
That one was honestly meant to be a joke. It was kind of a joke between me and my husband, and
Yeah.
I wrote the song. He even like would text me some lyrics, and we were having fun with it. And I played it out at like a festival one time,
Mm.
like just because my family was there, and I was like, oh, you'll get a kick out of this.
Yeah.
And suddenly it just became requested all the time,
Right.
and so I was like, well, I guess I got to release it.
Yeah.
Crowd demand.
It's one of those things where it's like it's a song that you don't think's going to go anywhere. You just kind of most of the time musicians will create a song like that where it's like it's just stuck in my head. I need to create it to get it out of my head. And then you play it one day and it's like, oh, people want to hear this.
Right.
So
Right. It is funny. There are some songs that instantly are going to be a hit, and like
yeah.
people are going to love them. But there are some songs that kind of like sneak up on you. Like that
Yep.
one I thought people would think was cheesy and
Yeah.
dumb, and they loved it. And then like, I even remember there's a song I wrote about my grandpa and played at the listening room, and it was just really folksy and artsy. And I just was like, oh, it's not mainstream. People, it's kind of weirdly written. They're
Mm.
not going to like it. And that was also like a crowd favorite.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny because sometimes some songs sneak up on you and surprise you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So moving forward to the upcoming single release, is this a song that people have heard before? Or is this a 100% brand new song, never been played out before?
No, it's been played out a few times.
Mm.
I tend to record way later than I write,
Yeah.
so most of the stuff has been tested out live.
Mm.
But this one I wrote with my friend Taylor Hughes, probably 3 years ago.
Hmm.
It's been a little bit, but it was I just kind of thought of that title, Red Wine and White Lies, and I was walking one day just trying to think like, okay, well, I have this hook. What could it be about? And it kind of just turned into this sassy, like cheating drinking song. Like
Nice.
she is, realizing all the little white lies that her significant other has been telling her.
Hmm.
And she's like, oh no, like I know you're lying to me,
Right.
and you just think you're getting away with it. But she's just like sitting there getting drunk on wine. And I think ultimately she probably leaves him, but we didn't. We kind of just left that up for interpretation. But
Yeah.
it's just a very sassy, fun song.
Yeah.
um, and it was another one that kind of snuck up on us. Whenever I recorded it, I didn't plan for it to be a single, but it was funny, like when you found the right guitar
Mm.
part, something just like clicked, and suddenly I was like, no, that one's a banger. Like it's fun. We need to release that one.
Yeah. So kind of expanding off of that, what was it about this song that was kind of like, hey, this needs to be the first single off the upcoming EP?
Yeah, I just remember I was sitting in Key West.
Mm. Nice.
I was staying at a big house in Key West. I don't remember what week it may have been. I think it was the meeting of the minds, the big Parrot Head meeting.
Hmm.
And I was sitting in there, and I got the text from my the mixer and saying like, hey, I have a first mix for you to
Yeah.
listen to. And this was like the first time I'd heard it with the new guitar parts and stuff. So we like chased down a speaker, and we were staying in this big like group house.
Mm.
So a bunch of the people that were like staying in the house kind of gathered in the kitchen, and we like listened to it for the first time, and they got so into it. And I was like, wow, like that one guitar part changed the entire song. Like it changed
Nice.
the entire feel of the song. So shout out to Scotty Murray who did that, and just kind of brought it to life.
Nice. You brought up the parrot heads. Are you into that scene? Like, are you really into that or?
I am
Oh.
actually. It's kind of a funny story. Me and Kirsty Kraus, who I think
Yep.
we started touring together a couple years ago, I guess almost 2 years ago.
Hmm.
I always pick on her, and I'm like, she broke up with her last musician boyfriend, and she decided to take a girl on tour, and it worked out. So she had kind of started touring in Florida, and
Hmm.
through that got to know some of the Parrot Heads.
Nice.
And they have a really nice community, and so while a lot of my music isn't trop rock,
Yeah.
just really gotten into that community and that scene.
Nice. It is a really cool community, and just you don't have to be into the music to be a part of the community. You just gotta
Right.
want to go to the Keys and have a good time, and
Exactly.
you'll run into a parrot head at some point. Yeah. So, I brought it up because I had Kirsty on the show last week, this past week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
that
she
was,
had that new trop rock song
yep,
out with Mark Mulch called Tied Down. So this
yep.
was her. We've both been writing some trop rock stuff, and we
Hmm.
play it out at our like beachy shows, but this was her first like release of that style of music. So I was really proud of her for that. And I think she's trending on some stations
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, she's doing really well with the single. It was one of those situations when we sat down because it wasn't directly on her Spotify feed and I
Mhm.
didn't catch it on her Instagram. And when we before we sat down to record, she was like, "Hey, you may want to look at this song." And Trop Rock wasn't really what I was looking for, but I was like, "You know what? Let's slide it in there. It'll work for the for a country radio show. Like the song itself worked
Yeah.
for the genre." And I was like, "Okay, we'll slide it right in there and it'll
Yeah,
be good."
well, she also, I don't know if she played you her duet before that, Who Am I
Mm.
Gonna Love, with Thomas Kavanagh from the UK. I actually was the co-writer with Thomas on that one, so you'll
Oh,
have to check it
nice.
out.
I did see that. I did see that
Yeah.
promo. And yeah,
But that was another duet that was like not on her main screen, but
yeah,
that one was a cool one because me and Thomas wrote it, and then him and Kirsty recorded it, and it was just this cool thing for us
yeah.
all three as a friend group to see that come to life.
That's really cool. Yeah, for sure. It was a when I sat down to listen to it, I really enjoyed that song as well. Uh, but before we wrap everything up here, I do want to bring up all the amazing stringed instruments you have sitting right behind you. That is quite the collection you got there.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I only play the guitar.
Uh-huh.
We sort of acquired the fiddle, but I am hoping to start because I mean the banjo, we
Yeah.
acquired it, but I am wanting to learn the fiddle and the mandolin, and they are this. You play them differently, but they are like the same notes.
Hmm.
So that's kind of my next
Nice.
venture. My husband's mad at me though because he bought me the fiddle and I haven't touched it yet. But yeah, so I when we moved into our house into 2020, I was like, I want a wall. I want like a wall to use for
Yeah.
live streams. So we made this one. There's a few more pictures up
Oh,
top.
nice. Yeah.
There's like Merle Haggard, George Strait, and a cat with a cowboy hat.
That's awesome. That's the cat just kind of brings the whole room together. Yeah. Are you looking to start like going more into like a bluegrass sound? Because a lot of the instruments you have sitting right there, it seems to lend more bluegrass. But what's kind of your thoughts there?
So, probably not full on bluegrass,
Hmm.
but I definitely love songs that have that rootsy feel
Hmm.
and use bluegrass instruments within like more like country medley
Hmm.
melodies and
Yeah.
country vibes. So I
Yeah.
definitely love blended sounds.
Yeah.
So I always stay pretty country, and compared to most people who blend sounds, I'm still way more country than most of them.
Yeah.
But I do like to blend like the bluegrass and the folk and the rock and the blues and kind of bring that into my sound as well.
Oh, for sure. It's, just kind of finding that sound that works perfect for you. And I think in the next 10, 15 years, you're going to see genres kind of go away.
Hmm.
And it'll be really interesting to see.
Oh, it's been crazy just to see how country music has changed and the blends that's happened. And some I like, some I don't, but none of them are right or wrong. They're just
Right.
all different people's
Yeah.
kind of combination of influences coming together. So
Yeah, for sure. It's really cool. Like just kind of seeing how all the different influences, and I think it has to do with the musicians that are coming in or have been around for a little bit because they grew up with parents that like mom liked country and jazz, but dad liked hard rock and rap, just like so they grew up in multi genre houses as far as music goes. And whereas I feel like back in the day, it was like, oh, we listen to country. That's what we listen. So
right, it was way more clear cut a long time ago, but it's definitely had. I mean, I even remember listening to Shania Twain growing
yeah.
up, and I thought she was country, and my dad was like, "That's not country, that's pop." But I just remember being like, "Huh." And then as you get older and you start seeing the different phases, it's
Mm.
kind of cool though.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But before we wrap this up, if anybody wants to check out your music, any upcoming shows, any of that stuff, where's the best place to find you?
So my website's kind of the one-stop shop. So it's Krystal with a K, like the burgers, and King like Burger King. So krystalkingmusic.com. And you can also find me on, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and I think most of the handles are Krystal King Music. But definitely go there and pre-save the single. So it's Red Wine and White Lies, and it's coming out August 25th.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, excited to hear the new single when it drops, and would love to have you back on anytime you
Yes,
feel
love
like
that.
you. And we'll be right back after this last song by Krystal King called You're the Reason I Drink.